Welcome to a Champion's Journey podcast. I'm Matt Davidson. From an early age, I've had the privilege of learning from world champions and world-class performers, and I've always been fascinated by what drives them to the pinnacle of achievement. In this podcast, I'll interview high performers to learn more about the tactics and strategies which have helped them on the road to championship victory. The intent of a Champion's Journey podcast is to interview not only those who have stood on the top podium in arenas of high-level competition, but to learn from those who have conquered life's greatest challenges and have dared to live life on their own terms. This episode is brought to you by Performance Designs. PD is a world-class parachute manufacturer who's been setting the industry standard for almost 40 years. PD has recently introduced the Sabre 3, the third canopy in a lineage of amazing, world-renowned wings. But it's not just a new wing, it's a better wing. It redefines the Sabre name. Crisp handling, consistent on-heading openings, huge dynamic speed range, incredible landings, more power, and seriously responsive to inputs. PD athletes and test jumpers agree that this will be one of the most sought-after canopies in the world for intermediate to expert skydivers. It's the next greatest all-around 9-cell modern canopy. Driven, focused, dedicated, disciplined, relentless, inspiring. These are some of the words which come to mind when describing Lauren Modica. About to begin her senior year at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, Lauren is setting herself up for a bright future with unlimited possibilities. Interested in aviation from a young age, Lauren attended trade school for aviation maintenance during her last 2 years of high school. During that time, she also attended night classes at Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology, where she earned her aviation maintenance power plant license. Lacking the financial means to pay for the required flight hours needed to earn a private pilot's license, Lauren found an alternate solution, working as an office manager and mechanic's apprentice at Long Island Aviators Flight School. After achieving her goal of becoming a private pilot, she then earned her instrument rating and commercial pilot certificate. Lauren's decision to apply to the United States Naval Academy was largely driven by a strong sense of service influenced by her father, a New York City firefighter who was a first responder during the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, and her mother, who worked in the medical field. In addition to her academic obligations at the Academy, Lauren learned to skydive and became a member of the Naval Academy's parachute team. Lauren has amassed over 300 freefall jumps and was recently selected to be the parachute team's captain for her upcoming senior year. As if her academic and parachute team responsibilities weren't enough to fill up her schedule, Lauren successfully completed the Marine Corps Martial Arts Instructor course and somehow manages to make time to consistently train for competitions as a triathlete. Lauren's next big goal is to become a Marine Corps fighter pilot, and I have absolutely no doubt she will become one of the best. Hi, Lauren.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. To get started off, I'd like you to tell us some about yourself, where you're from, what you're currently doing.
Absolutely. So I'm from Centerport, New York. It's on Long Island outside of Astoria, Queens, if anyone knows where that is. I'm currently at the United States Naval Academy. I'm going into my senior year, so they called it first class, and I'm on the parachute team there.
What was the selection process like to get into the Naval Academy? What were the barriers to entry? And can you tell us some about how you negotiated those obstacles?
It was definitely a long process and something that can be grueling for someone who's on the fence about going there. So I think that was the hardest part for me, actually committing to deciding that I wanted to apply. Not even that I thought I was going to go, because you have to wait a while to get there, to get like your acceptance letter if you do get in. But it starts out in your junior year, and you have to do a preliminary application. So that's where you submit information about yourself, and they kind of look you over and see if you'd be a good fit. And they might give you an opportunity to go to something called summer seminar. And this is where you also get an opportunity to see what it's about. So that's the summer before your senior year of high school. And you go and you get to see kind of, in a week time span what everything is, and they give you a little brief overview about what the academy life is like. And then after that, you can continue with the application process, and there's a couple things you have to do. So obviously there's an essay, and then you have to have some recommendation letters, and then you need a congressional nomination as well. And I think that's the hardest part, because the congressional nomination is like a separate application in and of itself. So you have to apply to a couple of them to increase your chances of getting this nomination, because the nomination is required to get into the academy. And with each nomination, they also require essays and other recommendations, and you can't use the same essay for a lot of them because they'll ask different questions. So that was a big hurdle, making the time to make each essay, to write each essay and proofread them and go through the interview process with all the nominations, as well as for the academy pipeline itself.
Very cool. It sounds like, that's quite an achievement just to, go through that process and to get selected. Was attending the Naval Academy something that you wanted to do from an early age?
Not really. I knew I wanted to join the military pretty early on. My dad was a New York City firefighter. My mom was in the healthcare business, everywhere from nursing to doctorate to she went into healthcare planning. And so I kind of wanted to give back in the way that they did to society, but I knew I couldn't be a nurse because I wasn't within that. I couldn't deal with blood and couldn't do that. And I didn't really want to be a firefighter. So the military really attracted me. But my parents are like, you should go to school. So I just found out about this program and decided to apply to it.
Was your dad a firefighter during 9/11?
He was.
What was his involvement, if you can talk any about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So he was in the North Tower when the South Tower collapsed. And he departed from the North Tower approximately a minute before it collapsed. He was about 500 feet from the base of the North Tower during that collapse, and he just got really, really lucky. He was one of the few people in they call it engine. There's engine and ladder companies in one building. So he was one of the few people in his engine to survive that.
Wow, that's incredible. Did that play a role in you wanting to join the military at all?
Absolutely. I definitely say that he's been a big role model in my life, and so is my mom. And so that seeing them do these things, I was like, I want to contribute in some way like they have.
What was your upbringing like as a kid?
Well, I'm one of 4 girls, and my dad laughs. He's like, I wouldn't want a boy after all that. I'd treat my girls as if I had boys. So I guess if that can give you any idea of how he treated us, he says he didn't treat us any different. I don't know. But growing up, it was a suburban town. My family, I have 3 younger sisters. 2 are really close in age, and then one's a lot younger. And I'm the closest to the one who's the youngest, and I kind of helped raise her. So kind of tried to be the role model of all the sisters, and my parents were my role models, and I respected them a lot. And then I tried to be that for my younger sister. So my upbringing was more of, here's what you need to get done. Here's the mission. Get it done how you see fit. And if you don't do it the right way, we'll have to talk about that later.
Wow. Do you guys have a good relationship? Do they appreciate that model that you set for them?
My sisters?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think my youngest especially, she's only 10 now, and I get to go home and visit her quite often, and I think she's pretty sad when I leave, so.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet. Have you been able to give them a tour of the academy at all? Have they come to see you?
Yeah, I have. I've had the opportunity to do that, and it's been super awesome. The sister just below me, her name's Morgan, and she really wanted to go to Naval Academy as well. She did not get in, but she got into the Air Force Academy, and she's been excelling there, and I'm really proud of her. But I'm so glad I got the opportunity to show them the Naval Academy and everything like that. So
very cool. Does your sister at the Air Force Academy want to be a pilot as well?
She does.
Very cool. Yeah. You have a mechanical background. Was that something that you kind of gravitated to from an early age? And did your dad help you out with that, or is that something that came a little later?
That's definitely something that came from my dad initially, and then I kind of grew from that. So he was, like I said, here's the problem, here's the mission, here's what we got to do to get it done. And he would put me on my own for a lot of things that he knew I needed to succeed in, and he instilled in us that we need to work for everything. We're not just handed out things, and we can't just be given things. You have to work for it. So the mechanical aspect kind of came from that. Like when I was learning to drive, it was like, okay, here's how you change your oil, because you can't just go and I'm not going to change your oil for you. Here's how you fix a tire if you get a flat tire, stuff like that. And he has a very mechanical background. He was a motorcycle mechanic for a while, and he raced professionally. So he tried to pass on a lot of that knowledge to me, and then I kind of took it from there.
That's super cool. What kind of races did he do?
He did motocross, so back in the day.
Yeah, did you go along with him to some of those races?
I did not. That was like before I was born, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you, going into high school, what you did during high school to start getting some experience with mechanics.
Sure. So during my first 2 years of high school, it wasn't too much. It was just stuff that I did with my dad, simple stuff on my car that needed to get done. And then from there, I didn't like high school at all. I didn't really fit in. It wasn't really for me. And so I wanted a change, something different to do. And they offered this technical program. It was called Western Suffolk BOCES, and it offered the opportunity to do a wide range of things. You could do welding, electrician, you name it, learn to fly. So I initially was like, okay, I want to fly. So I tried to go for flying, but it just wasn't for me. They didn't have a lot of flight time or hands-on stuff in that program, and it was more like sit down, read this, and I just didn't really want that. So I transitioned to the aviation maintenance program, and I did that for my last 2 years of high school. So I went to high school classes that I had to take to graduate in the morning, and then I went to the technical school in the afternoon.
Wow, that's quite a busy schedule. And we were talking a bit about it before, and you said that some of those were night shifts, right, while you're still attending class and going to school?
Yeah, so how it works is the aircraft maintenance license is broken up into two parts, power plant and airframe. And it's like two separate licenses, and you need both to work in most jobs or to get a job in the field. But when I was going to the school, during high school, I was going from the power plant. But in addition to power plant, you need something called general. And the general gives you a basic electricity background and stuff that you need for both of the licenses. So I wasn't going to be offered that. So I wouldn't be able to get either license when I came out of the technical program after high school. And I wanted something to show for all my hard work going through that program. So I decided to take classes at Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology, which was in Queens. So it was about 30 miles away from my house. And I took night classes to get the, classes that I needed to take for the general portion in order to test for my power plant license.
Wow, very cool. Do you find that those helped you, getting that mechanical background helped you when you went to get your pilot's license?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that I did the maintenance part, because not only does it make me a more confident flyer, I think, but it helps me to really understand the aircraft and a better flyer for it. So if I had an emergency a year and a half ago, where the elevator cable broke and the elevator controls the pitch, so the up and down of the aircraft. And I felt that with the maintenance background, I could kind of know a little bit more about how is this going to affect me trying to land and fix this problem, essentially, and get myself safe on the ground.
Wow, so you had to troubleshoot a little bit, essentially?
Essentially, yes. I had to figure out, okay, what is actually broken? Is anything else going to happen to compound this if I continue to fly in this way or that way? How exactly is it going to be the best for me to land, or the safest way to get back home?
And how did you deal with that situation?
So in that situation, thankfully I wasn't too far away from the airport, so it was a matter of just finding the best runway to land on, and thankfully there were no winds and it was almost perfect conditions. But just understanding that coming into land, I didn't want to use, there's something called the trim, which helps correct your pitch and eases the pressure off your controls. And a lot of pilots will say, use the trim for landing, and that can help you if you lose elevator control. But I didn't. The trim is mixed in with the elevator cables in the back. And so it is very possible that if I tried to use the trim, I could have compounded this problem and even lost aileron control, which would have lost any ability for me to turn left and right. So essentially I was like, okay, I'm just going to use power for my flare and landing, and it's going to be kind of a harder landing, but at least I'll be able to turn my airplane and make my way straight onto the runway.
Wow, and obviously everything worked out just fine.
Thankfully, yes.
Have you ever had any other issues that you've had to deal with?
Thankfully, nothing major.
And what kind of aircraft was that? Just out of curiosity.
It was a Warrior, a Piper Warrior.
What's your favorite type of aircraft to fly so far?
So far, I'd probably say Bonanza.
And why is that?
It has a lot of power, and it's just fun to fly around.
Nice. What kind of aircraft do you want to fly after graduating from the Naval Academy?
I'd like to fly jets. I'll fly anything the military has to give me, but jets is preferred, and I'd like to fly the F-18.
That's awesome. And let's take it back a little bit. How did you find out about being a pilot, and what was the route that you took to get your pilot's license?
Absolutely. So the local airport in my area, the final approach from one of the runways goes straight over my house. So it was very common to see airplanes pretty low flying around, and I would see those all the time, and that kind of inspired me to go fly. And I didn't think I was going to like it at first, but I did an intro flight, and so I went for that intro flight, and I loved it. And from there, I kind of was like, uh-oh, how am I going to pay for this? Because this is fun. And like I said before, my dad was like, instilled in us, you work for what you want. And he was very positive and encouraging, but not necessarily financially. He's like, if you want that, you'll make it happen. And so that's what I went out and tried to do. And so I found a job at the flight school, and I did some maintenance apprenticeship on the side, because at that point I was in class for the aircraft maintenance, and I also worked as an office manager there and helped manage their funds and stuff. So I was able to get flight hours for a certain amount of hours that I worked at the school.
Wow, that's very cool. I really like how you find alternate ways to make things happen if you don't, if you run into a barrier to entry of some kind. And I think that's a common trait of a lot of successful people. When you found out about skydiving, if you can tell us a bit about how you found out about that, at what point in your journey? Was that before you wanted to become a pilot? Was it after?
It was, I started seeing it because I was in the aviation community now, so I kind of saw some people, and I was kind of intrigued, but I didn't go that route right now. I was already spending a lot of money on flying and trying to just support that, so it didn't cross my mind too much. And then someone who came to the flight school was really into skydiving, and this person brought their rig into the office to go. They were gonna go fly to a drop zone, and then skydive and come back with the rented aircraft at the school that they could rent. And so I saw the rig, and I was like, wow, that's cool. And I asked them some questions, and I started to find out some more information, and I watched some videos on it. And at that point, I was kind of getting more and more interested. I went for a tandem. My mom found out. She was not happy at all. She said, she was basically like, don't even think about that while you're living under this roof or something like that. So I was like, oh. So I said, okay, fine. So I didn't do it. I basically stopped at that point. I did my first jump course while I was still at home, but I didn't pursue it too much more. I did have the flying thing going on, so it would have been a lot to juggle, I think. But then at the Naval Academy, they had the team, and I was like, oh, this is my opportunity.
Nice. How many jumps did you have before you get onto the Naval Academy team?
I was still a student when I got on, so not many. I kind of, I did the tandem before I got into the Naval Academy. And then once I got into Naval Academy, I applied for the team, and I got on the team, and I did a handful of jumps, like working through AFF before I was officially on the team. And then after that, I was on the team, but we're a self-funded team, so not much changed. It was just kind of like I just go with the people on the team after that.
Nice. Let's take it back a little bit. How did you feel when you got notification that you made it into the Naval Academy?
I was super excited and surprised because I didn't really apply to anywhere else. I applied to Naval Academy, and I applied to Embry-Riddle, but not because I thought I was going to get in, but more of like, if I don't go in, I'll just enlist or something like that. And so I got my notification really, really late. Most people had already found out that they were getting in, and I didn't think I was going to. So I was just kind of like resigned to the fact that I had not gotten in, because you usually find out in February, March. I didn't find out until like April 30th or something like that. So as I was waiting, I just resigned to that fact. And my next door neighbor 2 doors down had gotten in, so it was kind of like she was throwing it in my face, which wasn't very nice.
No, man.
But then I got the message that I had gotten in, and I was absolutely ecstatic, but kind of shocked. Like at first I didn't really believe it for a little while, so it took a little while to, I guess, settle in.
If you can tell us some of, paint a picture for us what it's like getting to the academy the first day, what it's like for, the different phases, if you can just, describe the process to those of us that haven't experienced that.
Yeah, absolutely. So plebe summer is the initial thing that you have to go through, and it's, I guess, most similar to boot camp, and that's basically you're just kind of beat down all the time, and they make you learn a whole bunch of rates. And so it starts in June, and it lasts the whole summer until the school year starts. And for me, my school district, like high school, ended really late. So I ended up graduating, and 3 days later, I had to go to the academy plebe summer. And so when we got there, it was a 5-hour-long wait to get through the process of them taking your blood and cutting your hair, because all the girls had to have their hair cut short. And you just go through all that process. You're standing in lines and lines getting issued all your stuff, and it takes hours, and at that point you're just exhausted. And then you finally have all your stuff, your hair is cut, they drew your blood, and you finally get to the entrance of Bancroft Hall. That's our form of a barracks at the school, on the campground, on the campus. And you get there, and they're just all the detailers, we call them, just waiting for you. And people would trickle out of that 5-hour-long line. So there were plenty of detailers to harass you, and that's exactly what they did as you made it up to your room, and they'd continue to harass you in your room and all that. So that basically went on for the next couple weeks during the summer. It wasn't too bad, but definitely a lot of PT going on throughout the summer as well. And then you get into plebe year, and it relaxes a little bit because you're in an academic session now, more than in the summer. It's not academic at all, but you're still considered a plebe, so you still have to do crazy things like chop around, which is like running around and squaring your corners at 90-degree angles and yelling weird things, and doing things at the mess hall that you wouldn't have to do as an upperclassman. So you still have all these rates that you have to uphold throughout the year. And then slowly you get more and more privileges. Finally, this past year, I have been able to wear civilian clothes when I leave the academy. Before that, you're only allowed to use your uniform on liberty, which is kind of a pain in the butt, especially when you're trying to wear your whites out in the summer and you just get them so dirty. Mm-hmm. But yeah. How
many of those sets of whites do you have?
You have 3, but I can tell you that you go through them real quick, and it's really easy to rip them, or I've accidentally melted a pair from ironing them. Mm. So I only have 1 pair now.
What are rates exactly?
So rates are just, you rate this or you rate that, and you don't rate this and you don't rate that. So it means things that you, qualify for or allowed to do or not allowed to do. So for example, first class rate the most amount of things. So they rate this staircase, or they rate having backpack straps. Meanwhile, plebes don't rate backpack straps, and plebes don't rate most of the staircases, that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it does. And it sounds like the selection process, or the early phase there, is a lot like any military entrance, to any type of school, or for example, myself getting onto the Golden Knights. You go through that tryout selection process, and they want to test your character. They want to really see what you're made of and put you under stress, just to make sure that later on, if you're in any kind of stressful situation, you don't break. You're still able to work as an integral part of the team. And did you find that there was anyone that just couldn't handle that when you guys first got there and they decided to drop out early?
Definitely. There definitely were. And I think you're broken up into companies, so there's 30 companies in total. And I think in my company, during plebe summer, we had 1 person drop. And then as the years continue, more and more people drop. So in total, in my company, in my class, which is started out with about 40 people, we're down to like 32. So still a good amount of people, but it definitely gets weeded out as you go along.
What were the more difficult things for you? Was it the academics? Was it the physical training? And were you well prepared for the physical training before you went to the academy, or was it kind of a slap in the face, a surprise, if you will?
I think during plebe summer, the part of the physical part was hard for me. So, for example, I was a swimmer in high school, so I didn't do much impact training or running. I ran, but I didn't run as much as I probably should have before plebe summer, and so I got shin splints really bad. And so I was just hurting so bad the last couple of weeks of plebe summer with these shin splints because we were running in not only sneakers a lot, but we were running in boots and dress shoes because plebes have to chop, which is chopping's just running with high knees inside Bancroft Hall with our dress uniform. So that just destroys your shins and your knees and stuff. So that I think if I had ran more before going, that would have definitely have helped me.
And now you like to do triathlons, right?
Yes.
And did all of that running spark your interest in that, or how did that come about?
It 100% did. So after plebe summer, like I said, I was really hurting, and my shin splints were so bad that it even hurt just to like walk around. So I started biking a lot, because biking and swimming, because I love swimming, obviously, because I swam in high school, but I hadn't really biked before, and I started to really enjoy it because it was like an alternative thing. And then once they stopped hurting, I started running again. I kind of enjoyed just doing all three and mixing it together. And then another thing is that during high school, I did a couple of smaller triathlons. My mom was a triathlete. She loved to do triathlons. So I did a couple with her, but I just didn't like running at the time. So I didn't get super into it. But after I got into the academy, I really started enjoying running more. And I guess it all came together at that point.
The triathlons that you've attended, are those ones on base, or are they like civilian, other races?
They're all civilian. So during high school, I did a couple sprint and Olympics length triathlons. While I've been at the academy, I've done 2 sprints, an Olympic distance, and a half Ironman.
What do you like best? Do you like the running, the biking, or the swimming?
Swimming, hands down.
And you're also a scuba diver, right?
Yes.
When did you learn how to scuba dive, and how did that come about?
So this is kind of an interesting story. Going back a while, my family decided that we just wanted to live on a boat for a year. And so we just left, and we just got on a boat and went to the Bahamas and just sailed for a year. And it was very interesting because there wasn't in the Bahamas, you think of it kind of tropical, but the fruit doesn't grow there, and they don't really have any meat down there. So we found that a little surprising, but it was a great trip. We went down there, we just sailed around, we caught our own fish and distilled our own water and stuff. And while I was down there, I learned to scuba dive.
Wow, that is really cool. What kind of boat were you guys on, and did you already know how to fish, or did you have to learn through that process?
So it was a 43-foot catamaran, and if anyone who doesn't know what a catamaran is, it has 2 holes, and it's like open in the middle, and it's a sailboat. And so that was helpful for us because we're a 6-person family. So it gave us a little bit more room. Still cramped. You still see everyone within 43 feet every day. But it was awesome, and we didn't know how to fish before, but we gave it a shot. And to be honest, we didn't get most of our food from fishing. We went into the local neighborhoods and asked. They have grocery stores, but they're not really grocery stores. And you go in and you mostly see chicken's feet, and that's pretty much it. We didn't really go to the tourist attractions in the Bahamas. We stopped a few times in the touristy areas, but we mostly stayed to where the local islands, and it was so cool to see the locals there and interact with them. And they would make us conch, which is like the meat in a shell, shellfish essentially. They'd make us that, and they'd make us all these other delicacies and that we could have. But yeah, the grocery stores didn't have too much. We were happy to find some canned fruit or vegetables.
Wow, that sounds like an incredible experience. What were chicken feet like? I've never had them.
Honestly, I don't remember because I think I tried them once and I was like, I'm okay. I'll just starve instead.
Must have been pretty bad then.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part of the whole experience?
I think being self-sustained and self-sufficient on the boat was super cool to experience, and just be able to go and see the wildlife and be able to sail and just kind of live in the nature for just a year. Because like I said, I'm from New York, so it's very different. And it was just a totally different experience that was really awesome.
What kind of wildlife did you see? Did you see dolphins and sharks?
Yep, dolphins, sharks, manta rays, sea turtles, lionfish, clownfish, so many types of fish. So, and like a couple squids, which was super cool.
Wow. Did you do any wreck diving around there?
Sort of. So there was essentially not really, but there was a small little boat that wrecked I think it was 50, 70 feet below the surface, and that we went onto that. But it was super cool because there were a bunch of sharks swimming around there.
Very cool. I'd like to get back into scuba diving. Jen got me lessons several years ago, and I had a bad experience with the Buddy Breathe, and it was we were in a quarry in North Carolina, and it was pretty cold at the time, so I kind of had a bad experience, and I need to overcome my mental block and get back into it. It's definitely something I want to do. With the sailing aspect, did you find that helped you with some of the academy requirements that you had to do? Do you have to learn how to tie knots and things like that? And did you find that you were more well prepared from the sailing experience?
Sort of. So I think it definitely helped me during plebe summer. So sailing is a requirement to take during plebe summer. And so I think it gave me a huge head start because I already knew how to sail. So I didn't have to go through the lessons, which was super nice. I just got to sail with they had an instructor for people who already knew how to sail. And we were able to go out with them and just kind of sail around. And we got it was like a craft license or something like that. Something where you could operate the sailboats. I'm not current in it anymore because it lasts for a year. So that was 2 years ago. But it was super fun at the time. And while it was not a requirement to know how to sail to go in, it definitely gave me a better experience during plebe summer, because when all the craziness of plebe summer, it was okay, I'm going to go and sail now. And it would be a relaxing time instead of trying to learn how to sail in the midst of everything else.
Right. What attracted you to the Naval Academy over the Air Force Academy?
The opportunities and the mission platforms. So I actually want to commission in the Marine Corps and first to fight. So that's kind of where I want to be. That's my goal, is to serve. My dad was firefighter, like I said, mother a nurse, and I want to be there giving the most I can to my country. And I think that's where I would be the most useful, where my skills would be the most useful, and where I'd be the most passionate about it.
What was your experience like on the parachute team? How did you find out about it? And if you can just take it from there.
Yeah, so I didn't know that there was one until I got there. And that was an email that was sent out because the team was on an operational hold for a couple of years due to the commandant of the Naval Academy not liking parachutists at all. And so it was just no, I don't want you guys around. So they weren't shut down per se, but they were on a hold. And so then the team was just starting up, and they sent out that email. And at that point, they didn't really have a selection process. They were just taking people who were interested, because there wasn't a big team at the time anyway. They're just oh, anyone want to jump be on the team? And then we've been able to grow it from there, which has been super cool.
And you're getting ready to take over as team leader?
Yep.
Awesome. What are your visions for the team going into that?
I'd like to increase our visibility amongst the brigade of midshipmen as a whole, and also within the skydiving community, because I think right now people are kind of oh yeah, there's a Naval Academy parachute team, but and not necessarily get to the point that the West Point team is at, because that's going to take a while, but just get more visibility and especially within the brigade, because you'll talk to even midshipmen that are around the yard and they're like, oh, we have a parachute team? It's like,
wow.
Yeah. So I think it's more prominent now this past year than it has been the 2 years previous. But I think that's only because of our hard work trying to make it something bigger.
Does some of that visibility come from jumping, doing a demonstration jump into the football stadium?
Absolutely. So we haven't been able to jump into our football stadium yet. We have had 2 opportunities to do so, but the weather has closed out on us, unfortunately. But we're hoping to do some practice football stadium jumps. And right now, we're not going to be able to jump into a football game until we get a full-time coach. So we're still waiting on that. But it's hopefully some practice football stadium jumps, and then the lacrosse team plays in that stadium. So hopefully we can jump in there for a lacrosse game. We're also hoping to do some parades on the yard, jump into the baseball stadium, and we've already jumped into the rugby field a couple of times. So we hope to continue to do that.
Very cool. Who are some of I know that my dad, Mike Davidson, he helps you guys out some with coaching and with flying the aircraft for jumps. Who are some of the other coaches there?
Yeah, so Mike Davidson is a huge one and a huge part of our team. We also have Mike Schultz. He's been with the team for 50 plus years, a long time. I think he's running on 80-something years old now, but he is SNTA and just an awesome guy to helps us and supports us financially as well. And then Captain B is Captain Boniface. He's our alumni representative, and he was on the team when he was at the academy, and he was also our officer representative, not our officer representative, but back in the day when he came to the academy as an officer, he represented the team in that capacity as well, and now he's helping to get funds from the alumni and for trips, and he's already secured a number of team rigs for us to use, which has been a big help, especially for our students.
And you guys recently got a nice big parachute loft, right? And team room?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And Captain B has been a huge contributor to that. He was able to secure that space on the yard. And then parents and alumni and friends have been able to donate, and we have made it look spectacular and useful. And it's been a huge help to our training.
I've seen some pictures. Unfortunately, I haven't been up there to see it yet. I hope to get to be able to do that soon. That's great. Hopefully, you'll still continue to get support from the alumni so that the program can grow and so that you guys can get the same support that the Air Force Academy does and that West Point Military Academy does. As far as your structure of training, how do you work? Because I know that you're doing competition on the collegiate level as well, and how do you juggle the competition training with the demonstration training? Is everyone doing all? Is everyone a jack of all trades, so to speak, or do you have certain team members that focus on certain areas of discipline?
It's a great question, something we're still trying to mold and we're working through as the team grows and gets bigger. As of right now, everyone does everything, and that's because we just don't have enough people to separate it out, and we don't have enough restricted D and pro license rated people to do those demonstrations. But essentially how it works is the ideal progression for someone on the team is they join us at their plebe year, and they get their license during their plebe year, and they start doing two-way, working on collegiate national stuff. And then as they go into their sophomore year, we call it their youngster year, they do two-way and compete in two-way at collegiate nationals in the winter during that year. And then in the spring following that, they get introduced into four-way and start working on four-way. Then their junior year or second class year, they continue to work on four-way. They compete in four-way, and then they continue to work on four-way in the spring and help the younger guys with four-way. And in their first class year, they'll compete in four-way again, and while continuing to help with teaching four-way to the younger guys and gals. And one of the important things is, like I said, everyone does everything on the team right now. So as they're doing that two-way, four-way stuff, we're constantly working on our accuracy. Sometimes we'll have demo-specific training weekends. We'll go with Mike Davidson, and we'll do smoke stuff, flag stuff, just working on our accuracy. But the main thing for us is every jump is an accuracy jump because we don't have the flexibility to do purely demo training type accuracy days and then 4-way, 2-way stuff. So we got to make it all count. And we make it all count by saying, okay, every jump's an accuracy jump. And you do that and you continue to work on both at the same time. And then hopefully by your first year, you'd get to that 250 jumps where we're eligible to get our restricted D and pro rating, which allows us to jump into our stadium, as well as West Point Air Force's stadium. And then at that point, you have to do those 10 accuracy landings, but hopefully you've been working on it the whole time. And then that's kind of our progression. And we also try to build some coaches on the team because it helps reduce the load on the monetary load for financial load, I guess, for students as they come on the team.
Do you collaborate at all with any of the other academies, with the Air Force and the West Point Military Academy?
We do. So we're a lot closer with the West Point team and with Coach Falzone, I think mainly because of proximity and distance from each other. And so Coach Falzone and the team have been a huge help to us, and we probably wouldn't be here without them. So I've talked to Coach Falzone a bunch if I have questions on stuff, and I think the rest of the team does, but we're able to drive up to the ranch where they jump in order to train with them, and Coach Falzone is very welcoming and willing to help us with our 2-way and 4-way stuff or accuracy and demo stuff if we're ever up there. He also comes down and helps with our demo jumps into the stadium because we need someone to lead that stack into the stadium and be eligible to jump in there since we don't have a full-time coach. So he comes down there for that, which has been such a help because we wouldn't be in the stadium without that.
Tom Falzone is great. I've known him for a number of years, and I've looked up to him. He's been jumping for a long time, and he just had his 60th birthday. So Tom, if you're listening to this, happy birthday!
Happy
again.
birthday!
Yeah, he's a great guy, and that's very cool to hear that you have that collaboration. There's also a competition of sorts, right, that goes on up at West Point. Do you guys attend that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the highlights of our year. So we do 2 main competitions. That's our focus throughout the year, and we do go to collegiate nationals, and then we do something called ISAM, which is the Inter Service Academy meet, and that's where we go up to West Point and we jump on the plane there. And Air Force comes too, and it's a great time. I've been the last 2 years. Unfortunately, we didn't get to compete. It's obviously this year because of COVID, but the year before that, the weather was not very good, so we did some tunnel stuff, and then we got our butts whooped at Ultimate Frisbee. That was the tiebreaker, but Naval Academy people are apparently not good at Ultimate Frisbee, so...
I played a bunch of Ultimate Frisbee when I was on the 8-way team. That was the thing that we did for some physical training if the weather was bad, if we had some low clouds or something. And, that was a lot of fun. It'll definitely get you in shape with all the, sprint-type intervals back and forth and agility as well, hand-eye coordination. Yeah, that's pretty great. Since you brought up COVID-19, how did that affect your classes this year, and what was that experience like?
So we were on spring break. The team goes on a spring break training trip, and we were down in Florida, and we started getting rumors from the academy that we weren't going back or something was going to change. And then finally we were supposed to be back on Sunday, and on Friday they're like, don't come back. And so we're like, oh boy. So most people just went home. I went home. And we started a week or 2 later, we started our online classes, and we've been that way throughout the rest of the semester doing those online classes, which has been a very new and interesting experience. And I feel bad for the graduating class because they didn't get full commissioning week or anything like that. But in terms of the team, it definitely just halted everything we were doing. Unfortunately, it limited a lot of the plebes from getting their licenses like they usually would. I canceled a lot of the demonstration jumps that we were planning for, and we just got an approval to do, so that was kind of a bummer. And it also canceled ISAM. So
yeah, that's a bummer. What's been your most favorite demonstration? I know that my dad was telling me about a demonstration they did, I think, a few years back with a team on out of a C-130 on a beach. I can't remember exactly where it was, but were you a part of that one?
Unfortunately, I was not, and I just recently received my restricted DN probe rating right before all this COVID stuff, so I haven't been participating in too many of the demonstration jumps thus far, but the team was able to go up to the Rhode Island Air Show, and they were able to jump out of a C-130. This was, I think, like you said, 2 summers ago, and they had a fantastic time, and they got to hang out with the Blue Angels and stuff, so it was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's always a great experience. I was on the competition team on the Golden Knights for most of my career and did some demonstrations interspersed, but, I always loved going up and being a part of the air shows and, going to the socials and, just being a part of all that and being around, the incredible people that are, the Blue Angels, Thunderbirds, and the Red Bull teams. And, that was quite an experience. So hopefully all the restrictions will be lifted and we'll be able to get back, somewhat to normal, and you'll be able to get those experiences as well.
I sure hope so.
Well, I'd just like to thank you again for coming on the podcast and wish you luck and ask you a final question. What advice would you have to offer to people that are looking to follow in your footsteps and start or embark on a champion's journey of their own?
I'd say definitely just keep working and keep working hard for things that you really want to do and things that you love. Just because someone tells you can't do it or someone looks at you like you're too small or you're like, oh, how old are you? Just prove to them that you can do it and find your own way to do it, because there are other ways out there. Don't just give up when someone says you can't or the first answer you get is no.
Well, thank you so much. You're an inspiration, and I know that hopefully I'm sure that you'll inspire many that listen to this, and you're an inspiration to me. You've already accomplished so much in your young life, and I appreciate the help that you've given to my dad in the past with helping out with your mechanical expertise with his aircraft. I know he enjoys having you around, and it helps to shorten up the process whenever he's doing maintenance on the airplane. So we really appreciate that.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye.